What's up everyone, welcome back to the Timbecon Turning Studio and welcome back to our segmented turning challenge. This is the 4th episode of the series, so if you're just joining us now, make sure you check out the playlist linked in the description for parts 1 to 3. Last week we finished gluing up our segmented blank and attached a tenon so that we could hold it on the lathe with a chuck. So this week I guess we're finally going to get turning and call this project done. Excellent. Now, when mounting the bowl to the lathe, I typically use a tailstock to press the bowl firmly into the chuck to ensure that the tenon is fully seated and also give a little bit of extra support when roughing out. This time though, something felt a little bit off as the puck that I thought was jacaranda was just way too soft, and as we'll see a little bit later, that will come back to bite me in the butt. My approach with this bowl was to roughly shape the outside of the bowl to remove all of the step overs or ridges between the layers, and that way I could get a better sense of what wall thickness I'll end up with once it's all smooth and kind of just get a better idea of what sort of shape I will be able to get out of this blank once it's actually round. I was a little bit nervous to start cutting as I thought when I touched it with the tool it would just immediately kind of explode, but it actually turned really nicely and it only took a few passes before I was confident to start kind of attacking this thing with some more heavier cuts. For the tool choice, I ended up using a combination of tools, but I started with my 16mm bowl gouge that has a custom grind on it, and I also used my 12mm bowl gouge for some parts of it as this has a 40/40 grind and it just is a little bit easier to use in some places. These gave me a really nice finish, and as long as I was performing a push cut like this, the surface finish was coming out really nicely. There was some fuzziness, but that's to be expected with the softer timbers that I used in this blank. Once I had the outside roughly shaped in, there was one layer towards the top of the bowl that was feeling pretty thin, so before doing any more work on the outside, I thought I should do the same thing on the inside, just rounding it out and smoothing off the steps between layers. On a standard bowl, I would usually use my bowl gouge to do all of the hollowing, so that's what I did here, and it worked really well, but once I got a little bit deeper into the bowl, it almost immediately catched and was ripped from the lathe. This is where that really soft wood came back to bite me. The moment there was a hint of a catch, it was just sheared right off that tenon and the blank went flying. Luckily it was a clean break that could make a good glue joint, so I just glued the two bits back together, let it dry overnight and picked up from where I left off. Seeing how easily this thing broke, I decided to change over from my bowl gouge to my probe hollowing tool from Crown, as this would give me a really decent amount of control and allow me to take super light cuts when hollowing. Now it is a carbide tool, but because the cutter is dished out and has more of a traditional cutting edge, you control it like a traditional tool and not necessarily like a scraper as the more common easy wood tools get used. As you can see, you don't need to worry about keeping it on center, nor does it need to be flat on the tool rest. And once you get the angle just right, it's super easy to get those precise whisper thin shavings right off the tool. Just as I was working down to remove the last of the ridges, I flattened out the tool to get a slightly more aggressive cut, and yeah, the exact same thing happened again. And it wasn't on the glue joint, which I found quite surprising because I thought if anything was going to fail, it would be that. So it goes to show, glue is actually pretty damn strong. After that, I decided that was enough and I made a new tenon from a much harder wood and just replaced the entire puck. The way I did this was I just reverse mounted the bowl in some cold jaws, cut off the pine layer with my Japanese saw and then flattened the bottom. Then using a second scroll chuck on a threaded live center, I used the lathe itself to glue the new tenon in place with perfect alignment. It's a really cool method for doing this sort of thing, and because we were already pretty close to its final shape, I didn't want to take any chances with gluing that puck on off center, so I had to just show off a little bit and use multiple chucks and be that guy. Though, I'm sorry, I usually try and only use one chuck at a time, but sometimes you got to use more than one. With all of the inner ridges finally taken out, I was only left with about 5mm or so worth of wall thickness in the bowl, so unfortunately, there wasn't much else I could do with the form. The shape would make a really nice lampshade, but as a bowl, it wasn't great. It's not bad, but not great. But hey, the joints are tight, nothing exploded despite being thrown off the lathe twice, and things were still looking fine. To finish things off, I scraped the outside of the bowl smooth and then turned my attention back to the inside to just get things just right. About halfway down the bowl, there was a slight bump and I really wanted to get that taken out because I knew the guys were going to be judging this and they weren't going to go easy on me. So with my bowl gouge, I super gently chased that out bit by bit until I was left with what felt like a nice, smooth internal wall shape with no bumps or ridges, and called it good. Now I think I got a little bit carried away when doing this because I ended up getting a much thinner wall than planned. So next time I'm going to remember to check my progress more often so I don't end up with a 0.7mm wall thickness. I sanded my way through all of the grits from 80 to 320, and for the finish I used two products. The first was the U-Butte Finishes Triple E Cut and Polish. This isn't actually a finish as such, but more of a pre-finishing stage to bring it from a sanded surface to a bit more of a polished surface. Goes on just the same as most other lathe finishes. Put some on a rag, apply a light pressure and buff it in, but it's technically not a finish. After the Triple E was applied, I then followed it up with 3 coats of Shallow Wax finish from the same company. This is a friction polish, so it's very similar to the Triple E, but it has a fair bit of shellac in it. So unlike Triple E, this will actually seal in the wood and protect it for a long time and kind of act as a barrier. With that, the bowl was finished, and all I had to do was part it off the lathe, remove the stub that was left, and call it a day. And there we go, the bowl is turned, and it's not bad for the first segmented project I've ever done. The shape is a little bit average, but as far as the process goes, it's been very enjoyable, and I'll definitely be doing this again in the future. So I guess that means it's time to take it over to the 2 blokes that actually gave me this challenge and get this thing judged and see if I get a passing grade. I think I will, but let's see what they have to say. Now, you may not recognize their faces, but these 2 guys have actually been on the channel several times with various projects, and they're kind of the guys I usually go to for all my questions when it comes to wood turning. So they're going to be judging my pieces. This is Colin, that's Dane. Let's see what they have to say. So just to remind everyone of the rules of this challenge in case you forgot, the bowl had to be built entirely in this studio. I was not allowed the use of any table saws or band saws throughout the duration of the build. The shop was open for supplies and extra tools if I needed them. And there was also bonus points for using hand tools, and that is the main reason we went the hand cut method. So let's hear what the guys have to say.
Overall, joins are pretty good. It's like no gaps, especially for the first attempt. Finish is really good. Turning could be improved on the inside, but for a first attempt at segmented turning, it's actually fairly good.
Yeah, overall, I think it's come out pretty well. It was pretty hard to start with because it was literally a bunch of random rings to try and put together into something that resembled, a bowl or a vase or something. So with no pre-planning, it's come out pretty well in the end. Finish is very good, and the overall shape is pretty nice. You worked with what you had. It's like turning with normal wood. So, but yeah, I mean, for the first attempt, yeah, you can't really complain with that.
And especially being hand cut.
You didn't throw it off the lathe, so, and it is quite thin.
Well, I did throw it off the lathe twice, but it didn't explode.
Yeah, so it is almost see-through in some spots. So, but yeah, just that inside could have been a little bit better. But there's always something you'll pick on the projects that you'll do better next time. So
yeah. Well, I was aiming for what the rim thickness is, and chasing out that hump in the inside that you picked up is why it got so thin. So I had to give up when I started seeing line.
Yeah, good effort. And next time I want to see a 48-piece one.
Yeah, maybe. Alright, so I passed.
Yeah.
We should have discussed this ahead of time, but next challenge.
We'll go to speed challenge. You do your hand cut, or use the table saw.
And I'll design the form.
Yeah, so we have to meet the form that you come up with?
Yeah.
Perfect. Done. Alright, well there it is. We have a finished bowl. Judgment went well. They picked up on a few little things in there, like the hump that I was trying to get rid of. But that was to be expected. So all in all, pretty happy with that result, and the guys have actually given me the thumbs up. So the next challenge is going to be another segmented challenge, but it is a speed run. It is me versus Colin, and we have to come up with the same form, but one method using hand tools and one method using the table saw. And I am the sucker that has to do it by hand again. So stick around if you want to see that one. Colin is the master of all things segment, so I doubt I'm going to win that round, but it'll be a good challenge, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. If you've enjoyed this kind of challenge, make sure you leave a comment below. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I think it will make for some good projects in the future. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Links to everything is in the description, like always. And if you haven't already, head over to timbecon.com.au and check out all of the things we have on offer. We do a lot more than just wood turning stuff, but being a wood turning channel, that's what we're all about here. All right, guys. See you next time.